everybody, Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. We're going to cover everything. We're going to cut through all the propaganda, give it to you straight from left, right, and center. The opinions are what counts. Hello everybody, Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It's the weekend edition. Happy Independence Day weekend, and I'd like to welcome back my good friend Joe Visconti. Joe, quite a week we witnessed over the 4th of July, predated, post-dated. We've got a Democratic Party right now, Joe. I've never seen it this crazy, disorganized. You pick the metaphor, but they are in a lot of hurting right now. Joe, the question everybody's asking, I'm going to tee it up for you. This is a softball one to start off, but there's no easy way to put it. Why is this man, Joe Biden, continuing to cling to power? Why has he not exited this race?
Everybody's asking that question. I think it's his wife. I really do. I don't think he has the ability to really make a decision. He's hearing, I think they over-prepared him for the debate. Not that he could have done better, but they over-prepared him. And I think they're throwing so much at him behind the scenes. Somebody that's senile or older, it's hard if you talk to them and try to tell them at our speed, this, that, and the other thing, they can't digest it. So in place of that, we watched this week Hunter Biden coming to meetings and assisting his father. So we have a convicted felon, not just a felon, a crackhead, you name it, sitting there in control with Jill, getting ready for the G7 summit. I think it's next week. And so the family's getting around him. Everyone's clinging to power. They're grifters. I just really think at the end of the day, it is what we've been lied to about by the media. It's grifting. The whole family's been grifting for decades, and they don't know any difference. They think they got the juice, the power, and nobody's going to throw them out.
It's sort of shocking to me as an American, Joe. I mean, look, as a Donald Trump supporter, and we're a couple of millions, you hate seeing this because if Joe Biden is Donald Trump's opponent on the ticket, Trump is going to win election, and it's not going to be close. And if I'm sitting there on the Democratic side, and far be it from me to give Democrats advice, but as an American citizen, I don't want to see Joe Biden on the Democratic side of that ticket. I mean, look, Donald Trump is favored to win this election right now. He was up by an average of 5 points post-debate. The New York Times Siena poll came out, showed him 49-43. Wall Street Journal poll had mimicked about the same number. An internal poll that the Democrats, it's something Labs, but a well-respected pollster had Trump up 3. So, you're sitting there as an American thinking, okay, Trump should win. We hope he wins. But in the event he didn't, we could literally be straddled with this guy for 4 more years. And I think, Joe Visconti, under that type of situation, the cabinet would have to invoke the 25th Amendment, or he'd have to resign or something, because this man is clearly not capable of being president. Just, the events heading into the 4th of July this past Thursday, Friday, his actions that they did yesterday. I mean, even on the 4th, on Thursday, he didn't seem totally functionable.
No, he didn't. And I was on one of your shows, I think a month ago, to look it up, and I predicted that on the 4th of July weekend, everything would be decided as to whether they were going to replace him. They can't wait longer than that. I mean, I didn't know this was going to come, but I just felt the timing of the weekend, 112, 110 days to the to the election. It's too much. And it's weird. And I've been talking to a lot of Democrats, and people I know, but I'm really calling them up since this happened, and they feel upset. It's hard for me and a lot of us to attack him. It's dementia. It's elder abuse. And so at first your humanity has to show that this has been the case. He hasn't been running the government since he's been elected. We all know that the cat's out of the bag, that the media, as you know, the mainstream media is looking to run away from everything that they're culpable for. They did this, they knew. And with Stephanopoulos doing his interview yesterday, all we're going to see is cut and edit, parsing, protecting. And I just think it's going to be a problem for the country. But the good news on one hand is the Supreme Court has been rolling out decisions. I'm sure we're going to talk about that today. But wow, the administrative state, everything that Trump wanted to do and dismantle, it's going to be dismantled by corporate America who have their own interests. And I think you're going to see a lot of places that corporate America doesn't have standing, individuals will, and you'll see corporate attorneys working corporations with individuals piecemeal by piecemeal. And no, not to put lead in our water, but so many of these rules. I mean, we've had the greatest win, whether Trump won or not, this past week, just on the Chevron deference. And people don't know about that. It's just go study it, see what happened. And it doesn't mean we're not going to have regulations. But Biden is clueless as to what any of that means. He can't defend any of it. And we can keep, beating him up like a dead horse. It's over. And I'm pretty sure, unless nature takes over, they will run him. They're just going to batten it down. Wisconsin on Friday just lifted the Supreme Court of Wisconsin, said you could have drop boxes. So there we go. We've got the bird flu on the horizon, drop boxes back again. So I just think they'll just, Democrats and the liberal world will try to look for anything it can to get an edge.
Well, they do, but I think they have a fundamental problem, Joe, and that's 50% of Democrats, half of their party, does not want to have Joe Biden at the top of the ticket. I mean, when you have states, Joe, that are now starting to come into play, blue states that pre-debate, New Mexico, did you ever in your wildest dreams think Trump could be competitive in New Mexico? Nope, I didn't. There had
New
been talk
Jersey.
about, yeah, I'm going to get to it. New Jersey, close to you. I actually saw a poll showing Trump ahead by a point in New Jersey. New Hampshire, I saw polling showing Trump's up a couple points in New Hampshire. Minnesota, he's gone from -3 to tied. Virginia, Trump's ahead in Virginia. Joe, what do you make of these polls in these
Well,
large states?
for people who may not be paying attention, go to Truth Social. On Friday, Trump put out probably 20 truths, not tweets, on polls, not just this poll or that poll, polls all over the country. And it's amazing. And you can check them out. The links are there on his Donald Trump account on Truth Social. And he really unloaded to put a lot of it out. It's not a onesie twosie. These aren't one-offs. And we know the polling has never been good for Trump. He's always behind the 8 ball when it comes to polls. Very seldom throughout the last 8 years have we ever seen polls that really say what's happening. So if we're seeing this right now, the population knows. And so I think Trump has to be careful, and I think he is. That's why he's not really out there doing a lot of rallies this weekend, because they want to give the Democrats a chance to hang themselves politically, and got to be careful of beating a dead horse, like I say, an old man that's dementia. He did a really great job in those debates, not doing that. Very few times did Trump do what he normally would have done. He recognized that this was a senile old man, and he was very delicate for Trump. A scalpel instead of a hatchet, and so I just think they recognize that and I think the Democrats may be waiting for that sympathy vote, but it's not going to
Well,
come.
it's odd, Joe, in that we're seeing what I'll call party participants, the donor class. Numerous donors have stepped up, big donors, saying they are not going to put any more money into this while he's on top of the ticket. You've got 3 Democratic congressmen that, through the end of last week, they were calling for it, and yet another 25 that were contemplating how to do it, that are talking among themselves. You had senators off the record anonymously saying, we've known about this for a while. And it appears, Joe, that not only is he ill prepared to be running, but his cognitive decline is accelerating, meaning, you can look back when he gave the State of the Union speech, and he got widespread praise for that. I don't know how that seems to be more the one-off than what's been happening lately. But you're hearing stories, leaks come out now about how he goes to important meetings. Cannot even remember the name of the people he's meeting with. Large donors go to various receptions. He can't remember the names. He's having to be told what to do, what to say. You even saw, I characterize it like this. Before the debate, everything Joe Biden did was being given a pass by the media, by the leftist media in this country. Right wing, we were to say the right wing media was surprised. That's not true. We knew what was going on. But where he went from, we'll call it the mainstream left wing media, giving him a pass on everything. Now it's just the opposite. Every single thing this man does now, Joe, is being scrutinized to the nth degree.
Yeah, well, the Governor Abbott in Texas has a physical disability like FDR. You can run the country with those type of things. You could be deaf, you could be blind, but you can't really have your mental faculties where they are, not just for international meetings, but for the reality that now the world knows that a machine, AI algorithms are probably running beyond the Marxists that are standing behind the White House. And this is very important. As technology starts to replace a lot of decision making, you're not going to see the Snowdens of the world anymore. And this is the danger. You're going to see AI programs, maybe one guy or two guys at the top that get the feed for what's being decided, and all of the polling and the things that are being done are being automatic engineered. And so what that means is we don't know. The ship is on autopilot, and if something happens, or if we want to be represented, we're not being represented by an autopilot machine, and the world knows that, and the Americans don't like that. They're going to go to a game and they want to see a real baseball game or a real football game, and they know, and you're not going to get this by Americans. Sorry, you're just not. He'll end up with 45% of the vote, I think. I don't think they remove him at this point. I really, unless something happens over the rest of this weekend. Maybe the G7 saves him. He walks around, or it sinks him, shaking hands with a ghost. So the next week is going to tell whether, or if this weekend it happens, but I don't think so. I think Hunter there at the table with him and Jill, they've all surrounded him, and they decided they're going to run government. And they're keeping Obama out. They're keeping Hillary out. And they're keeping a lot of people that have their hands in there, but they're not letting them take the wheel.
Well, I have a theory here. You may be right, but Joe, I remember, I'm dating myself a little bit, back when Richard Nixon was forced to leave. He fought it, and then finally, I think it was Al Haig came into his office and said, "Sir, it's over," and Nixon agreed to step aside. Now, Biden, from what reports we're hearing, the stubbornness is legendary. And if you take a man with dementia and add in stubbornness to it, boy, he's the one that's going to make this decision unless party leaders make it for him. All right, we're going to take a short break here. We're going to take a break. I'm going to catch you on the other side of the break. But when we come back, we're going to talk about some of these people that may end up replacing President Joe Biden. Be back in 90 seconds.
Sounds rolling. All three cameras. We're good.
Is there any regrets that you have in life? I should sit here and say, yeah, I got a lot of regrets. But when I look back on my life and I understand the lives that were lost, I'm sitting here with you. And I can tell my story.
Former National Security Advisor, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, pleaded guilty today to lying to the FBI.
He was one of the most respected generals in the military.
He was, by definition, the most dangerous possible person for Donald Trump to hire.
Brilliant military career, serving 33 years.
Why was he being so elusive?
Mike Flynn told the truth and faced life in prison.
Every American needs this historical DVD keepsake. Flynn delivered the truth, whatever the cost. Hand signed by General Michael Flynn, one of America's most treasured military heroes. Order now at the Patriot TV store. Go to Patriot TV, click on Store, and grab a once-in-a-lifetime chance to own a treasured piece of American history. And get your own personal download link to watch America's most talked-about movie, as well as a DVD hand-signed by General Michael Flynn. Use promo code PTV at checkout to get special savings. The Patriot TV store. Incredible savings and a secure, hassle-free shopping experience.
And we're back. All right, Joe, before we went on break, you wanted to get a comment in, and then we're going to talk about the 5 or 6 people that could possibly succeed Joe Biden.
Roe v. Wade was just being passed. We had a moral and religious country. We don't have that anymore. We don't have today what we had then. And also the permanent welfare class has grown immensely. The government union complex voters have grown immensely. All these classes of people voting for their own interests. It was never like that. So we're in a different place, and they know that. And Ron Paul said it years ago when they, as a doctor that delivered babies, he said, as the morality of the country changed, the laws changed. So we're in a place right now that is a good argument that when you put out there, and I get it, but I just think it's going to take a lot more because the country is immoral, it's godless at this point on the left. Even if you are a religious person on the left, that party is godless and immoral, and they lie, and the media lies with them, academia lies with them. Big pharma, corporate America, you just got lies. And anyway, so we're not in a place where Nixon got out that way. And so I think they know that. But let's talk about who's coming in if he does.
Yeah, okay, so you've been saying on this show for 6 months that Joe Biden would not be the nominee. You and Nikki Haley made the prediction in August of 2023 that Joe Biden would not be the nominee. And you're both looking fairly prophetic right now. You've been touting California Governor Gavin Newsom for a long time, Joe. Has Newsom's unequivocal support for Biden had done anything to change your mind? And how would you handicap Gavin Newsom replacing Joe Biden?
That's a great question because I've been watching him for a few days after the debate, and he's grabbing the cameras and they're surrounding him because everybody kind of thinks what we think. He's the person that could step in if it wasn't Michelle, which a lot of people think. But I thought I sensed from him, and watched him a few times, that he's not interested. I think a part of him doesn't want to engage with Trump in this mess. He's not, not going to really take a chance, I have a feeling. And even though I thought they would have made this particular move earlier, the stubbornness and other things we're finding out now that were really behind the scenes are showing. But I'm not sure he wants to step into a race where he's only got a couple months. He's got to fight off Obama. He's got to fight off Hillary. He's got to fight off counter everything surrounding that whole administration. And God knows what's going to blow up in his face in the next 4 months. He's got to get out in front of the camera and say, when I'm president, I'll do this. I didn't know, and throw everybody that's in power under the bus. I just think he's going to stand. At this point, I think it's too late and he's going to stay away. Wait for 2020. That's what I would do at this point. Wait for 2028. And again, unless nature takes over, and God forbid, and Biden goes out as our president physically and he dies in office or something, then I think it's a free for all at that point.
Well, it was really interesting. And you know what? I echo what you just said, because I've watched his body language. I've seen his commentary. I don't think he wants it right now. I think he's looking at this situation. He's not a dummy, okay? He's looking at his own poll numbers against Trump, and he's down 4 to 5 points against Trump. Not dissimilar to where Joe Biden is right now. And I think he's looking at this thing saying, holy shit, this could be a real colossal mess. And think about this. What would happen to his future if he, quote, lost to Trump? I mean, you're finished. I mean, if you're a Democrat and you lose to Trump, you're absolutely done. Which brings me to my next. And again, to finish up on Newsom, I I'm in your camp. I do not think he's going to be their nominee. I don't think he wants it. I think he's too smart to accept what would happen. And if you're in his shoes, now, obviously, if Biden quits and they end up having the Jim Clyburn idea of a 5 mini primaries, or however Clyburn was thinking about doing it, where they pick 5 candidates, I'm just thinking this, just the what language we're using. They pick 5 candidates. Who's they? Not the voters, party elders, party elites, Biden, Harris. I mean, anyhow. But for argument's sake, I think you're right. I don't think Newsom. Now let's talk about the obvious potential replacement, the woman who got 0 votes when she ran. Literally, folks, she dropped out at the Iowa caucuses and got literally no delegates. And yet, because of the identity politics that the Democrats play, she ended up being chosen vice president. So let's talk about our current vice president, Kamala Harris, who in one poll, Joe, showed with her within 2 or 3 points of Trump, but she's got a lower approval rating than Joe Biden does. Most Democrats, senior party officials, do not want her as the nominee, but you have a whole group of people on the other side, the more liberal icons of that party, saying, well, how can we possibly pass over, the first, non-white woman sitting on a ticket, and then there's the question of the money. There's $240 million that could go to her. Now, I've also seen reports saying that don't worry about that. If it's somebody else as the nominee, that money can go to the DNC and it can get funneled back to new candidates. So, Joe, your opinion on the current vice president, her potential on replacing Joe Biden?
Well, that's the problem that Michelle has if they wanted to run her. She's got to go up against Kamala. So it's knives out in behind the scenes. And these are things we didn't know, we kind of suspected. But don't forget, Biden was riding with Biden, sliding with Biden. He's been sinking with his age issue for a good part of a year. It's just accelerated as his dementia or whatever he has accelerated. So she's been sitting there in the catbird seat looking at it, and she wants in. Again, I got a feeling nature's going to take over or something's going to happen that would be debilitating. And I think the Democrats, we mentioned this, you and I, on this show a few weeks ago, will be satisfied with just turning their sights on the Senate and the House and just go into that mode of investigation, impeachments, and the rest of it to just redo it. And so, yeah, she's in if she can be in. There's nothing stopping that woman's aggression, but the Democrats have to decide what game they want to play. Give up on the presidency and just spend 4 years. That's not a really great strategy, but some of them may just decide if it's Biden that they're going to separate themselves from him and run in the U.S. Senate, run as a congressman with Biden on the ticket, and just divorce themselves. The way, like in Connecticut, not in Florida, we're always you're with Trump. We can't win in Connecticut for Congress or Senate because we stand with Trump. And we fight and we lose because we stand with Trump, big bad orange Trump. And that's the problem they're going to have in the areas where they can't afford to lose. So I'm sure the think tanks are working and the polls are out, and a lot of focus groups, but it's not good for them. I'm only really, I would always pray for the president, no matter what. I can separate my political self and what I think is happening because the Supreme Court is acting, because we're watching like this, I don't know, democratic karma working out where there's a recorrection on every level in government right now. And it's coming by the courts and it's coming by people. And because of that, it's as though our elected officials, of course, they're important, but they're becoming less important as we see the Justice Department and the judicial world start to come over and rebalance, really find that center again.
Well, back on Kamala for a minute. I mean, I think they lose either way. I mean, if Joe Biden stays the nominee, they are going to get beat in a landslide. And it will not be close because 51 million Americans at debate night. Now, no telling how many more have seen it since, but you can't tell your eyes they're lying to you. And now with all the scrutiny coming out, I mean, if this man were to somehow survive this, think about this. If you're a Democrat, do you want to be out there on camera supporting this guy, knowing that he is rapidly declining? Again, this, I think you used the word, Joe, elder abuse. That's what this is. Nobody wants to see this. And yet, you see these Democrats, those three governors, those foolish governors, some of which I like, but they're just foolish comments that came out after his infamous meeting with the governors, which, oh, by the way, came out where Joe said, you know, guys, I really don't want to do any events after 8 o'clock at night. I get too tired. What a great way to instill confidence. Back on Kamala Harris. I think, Joe, if Biden does step aside and she is the nominee, I think they'll lose and Trump will win. I think she'll lose by less than they would if they put Joe Biden up.
Yeah, that's true. But and the one last point is almost like this karmic thing. Everything they do to Trump that they're doing bounces back and hits them. That's what we've all been watching in this country. And so all the stuff that was always talked about Kamala and her sexual life, I'm not going to bring this up as for something for me, but there was a whole bunch of dirt that was buried over the years. Don't think that some of the Democrats that want her aren't ready to data dump on her in a weirdly nefarious way. So only because of, like I'm saying, this karma, they hit Trump raping a woman they never even met. And so all of a sudden, a lot of that could come onto them. It's hard to do it to the president and also a woman, but I would think the left does it to her. And so they've got Knives Out, that movie Knives Out. Everybody's after each other in that party. It's Trump takes this in a landslide, probably similar to, I know we did some of the polls, but similar to Nixon in '72. He takes Jersey, he takes Minnesota, he takes Virginia, New Mexico, Vegas, Nevada, and places that he was on the edge with. It's the black vote is not going to go with him. They're going to lose probably 35. I bet you 38% will come over if she's on the ticket and this nonsense continues.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be that high, but I think confidently, and some of the Patriot TV hosts we spoke to, that they feel that Donald Trump can get 20 to 25% of the African American vote. If he gets that, there is no chance Joe Biden can win an election if Trump's hitting into their core base at 20-25%. You know, one other theory that before we get to the other possible candidates, you know, the question's been coming up, Joe. Well, if he can't run and he can't remember names and he's clearly cognitively declining, why wouldn't he step aside now and all of a sudden, again, I'm not trying to give Democrats advice, but it would probably be a tougher re-election battle or election battle stated if Donald Trump was going up against President Harris versus Vice President Harris. Joe, a minute until we need to take a break. Analyze that one for a minute. I mean, if he's so cognitively declining, should he step aside? I don't see any evidence that's going to happen, but would that be the right thing to do?
Yeah, it would be the right thing, but he's not going to do that. Jill has got the power. They want to keep the power. So if he did step aside from the candidacy, that's one thing, but he'd stay in power till the end, no matter what. Then the sympathy comes. And don't forget, the sympathy is very important. But the question is, if he did pull out, would he say this is an open primary or an open convention and I'm not endorsing anyone? That's a question nobody's asking. I'm leaving it up to the Democrat Party and the Democrat voters who are, got cheated basically because I stayed in there with dementia. You pulled the lever for me and now I'm out. So if he doesn't endorse somebody, does the endorsement help or hurt? If he did step out, that's why every way they've looked at it, they can't win this thing. They need to just pray he stays healthy and stay in the race and try to win House and Senate and lie for the rest until November. Lie like a rug.
That's what they do. All right, we're going to break for 90 seconds, but when we get back, we're going to talk about some other names and some other alternatives. Be back in 90.
The world is about to shift. Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most private assets, silver and gold.
Call Kirk Elliott, PhD at 877-547-5743. That's 877-KIRK-PhD.
I don't know about you, but I have to have that cup of coffee in the morning. And Kingdom Cup is mold-free, it is pesticide-free, and it is organic. It's got this flavor that is delicious. You don't even have to put cream or sweetener in it.
Why did we go with the bean form, the whole bean? Because ultimately the powder form is the one that gathers the most moisture. And that means the more potential mold development. This is actually organic, mold-free, certified. That's important because ultimately people drink coffee, it's cultural. And so we tried to meet the culture where it is and create a healthy alternative.
Make the healthy choice for you and your family. Try mold-free, pesticide-free, and it's organic. Delicious Kingdom Cup coffee. And it's available now at the Patriot TV store. Go to patriot.tv and click on store. You'll find Kingdom Cup coffee in the health and wellness section. Order Kingdom Cup coffee at the Patriot TV store now.
And I'm back with Joe Visconti, and we're talking about alternatives to President Joe Biden. Let's go to the next name on the list that gets bandied about a lot, Joe. That's Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. You know, she's been remarkably silent throughout this entire thing. I'm not getting any indication from what I'm seeing that she has any interest in stepping into this position right now. Joe, what's happened with Governor Whitmer? She was considered near the top of the list prior to this event, too.
They can't muster the poll numbers or the cash in time, even if the Democrats can move the money. It's too quick. It's coming too quick. It would be happening in the middle of summer, so you can't really get all the eyeballs watching TV. It's a social media thing, and everyone's looking at their real brand name and awareness. Who's got the brand name except for Newsom, who's ruined California? Kamala, who's part of that deal. She was from California. What do you really have? Might as well go with someone no one knows. But I just think that's why we're in the predicament. That's why Biden is in the predicament. I don't think he or his team think that anybody could win. So what they're trying to do is just not be full of dementia. And that's a horrible place to be. You know, I was recently at a nursing home because my mom was in one for a while. The last 100 days, really watching a lot of elderly people. And every time Joe was out and I saw that, I looked at the people, I'm like, oh my God, he doesn't belong. What are they doing? If you don't have a heart and realize that, what are they doing? So I think Republicans, conservatives, and anyone who likes Trump and anyone who believes in America getting it back, making it great and all that, just needs to really pray for the Biden family, send some prayers, and pray they in their own personal lives do the right thing for their families and really for their souls. The country will be fine. And I say that only because I'm restoring faith in the judicial system. And that's what has been really bothering me, as bothered you, Mark, for the last 4 or 5 years, just watching the most insane rulings for insane. And we've had to deal with that insanity. It's coming, the ship's turning around. And so with that means the court system will put more pressure on bureaucracy and on the elected officials. So they played so many dirty hands. Who wants to play cards with them anymore on the left? So I have more faith in the government right now, believe it or not. And there's a lot of white hats and good people in the federal government. It's just kind of, I hate to say it like this, but it was like the Catholic Church I mentioned before when they had the pedophiles in there. It did something that really corrupted the church, a holy institution. And I think our government's going through that right now in a different way. The corruption and the greed and God knows what else is it within the U.S. Capitol and within Washington. And if mankind can't fix it, God's going to help us fix it. And I think we're seeing acts of God. That's what I think.
Well, we got a few other names of people that have been bantied about. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg. One person who's very well respected, barely her name's mentioned, is Gina Raimondo. Former, I think, Rhode Island governor, I believe. But again, I think, Joe, it goes back to the point you brought up. Names like Newsom, Whitmer, Biden, yeah, okay, those are pretty much household names. Okay, the others are not. So, and some of those governors that we talked about, like Pritzker, okay, how well known is he? Um, Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, his name's even been floated about. But I think the point is, they are in a big predicament right now. And to me, again, as an outside observer, not wishing anything good on the Democratic Party, to me, their obvious choice is to go with the vice president. You may disagree with massive amount of her policies, and I do, but she is not incompetent. Okay, by any stretch of the measure, she's not in cognitive decline, and I think I think the Democrats, she would make a better opponent for Donald Trump than Joe Biden will. Now, again, where everybody's asking these same questions, I found it really interesting that all the leaking that's coming out of the White House, this never happened before. It's happening right now. Did you ever in your wildest dreams think you'd see Carl Bernstein going on networks, the legendary, Watergate reporter, talking about the fact that he's become aware over the past year there's been 15 to 20 incidences where President Biden has experienced, like he did on the debate night. So, Joe, with all of these things coming out and with continuing leaks, and I know he's trying to do his damage control. We'll see how that polls after this weekend. But boy, I tell you one thing, the more and more you see this, it appears to me two things are happening simultaneously. As you correctly stated, Jill Biden and the people who surround Joe Biden, they're not giving this thing up without a fight. I just do not sense them stepping aside.
Well, you were right about the vice president. And that's probably, this is why Drudge is pushing it everywhere. If I had to put money down, I say nature takes over to a point very soon that they can't hide Joe in the next week or so or less. And so they're going to just go with Kamala, and what they may be fighting about right now, we don't know. Get this one. Who is the VP with her? We should talk about that for a minute or so, because
let's speculate. Let's speculate. There's no use for a better time than right now. So give me your couple names. All right, give me 2 or 3 more names. Well, okay, I'll give you a few names. One, it definitely would not be Gavin Newsom. Okay, it definitely, I don't think, would be Gretchen Whitmer, because they can say what they want, but I don't think the country is going to have 2 liberal women president and VP at the same time. Would they get some type of moderate? There is no moderate Democrats. Well, Andy Beshear is a moderate Democrat, but I don't know. I can't see that combination working. Kamala Harris, Andy Beshear. He's the governor of Kentucky. His father was governor of Kentucky. He won re-election in arguably one of the reddest states in the country. Pritzker out of Illinois. What is he going to bring to the ticket? I don't know. I mean, he's governor of a blue state already that's got massive problems in Chicago. The convention's going to be in Chicago, his home city. Okay, there's a possibility. Pritzker. I don't know. Those are a few names that. Man, Gina Raimondo. I mean, she's among the most competent members of the Biden administration for sure. So I gave you 5 names there, Joe. Go to town, pick them apart.
I think it's Buttigieg. I've always thought it would be him. They bring the gay vote in and the young vote. If they can keep the young vote with the this whole woke and everything, they bring a white man in like Hillary did. And I think that's the most popular name they have right now that's recognizable. It's a Department of Transportation. So what are you losing? Nothing really. You can fill that seat if you win. And so they run Kamala with Buttigieg. And if you take a picture in your mind and see them together, she's very charismatic. If she would just stop laughing. I think Friday, Trump called her, he named her Laughing Kamala. Or cackling or laughing. I'm not sure which one he's going to end up with. And so, the bottom line is if she would just be quiet and stop these blunders of saying things. She is Attorney General. She's an attorney. You said it, she's not stupid or ignorant, but I guess she has some stage fright. I think that's what it is. But Buttigieg would bring up, he's very eloquent. The scholars are going to like him. It really brings in the strength of I wouldn't even go to anyone else. I don't think there's another name that's as strong for them against everything. It's against everything I believe in, but Kamala Buttigieg. It's a crazy name to pronounce, but
Well,
I think that's what happens if nature takes over soon, and they're all probably jockeying for that position. And also the second term, everyone's negotiating what was going to be chosen by her. She's going to bring Kamala will bring a totally different team into the White House, a totally different administration. And so they think so far ahead, the Democrats may be lining all these ducks up behind the scene. And that's what they may be doing. They could take a week or two to get that done, but they're running out of time.
well, I mean, full disclosure, my sister works for Pete Buttigieg in Washington, D.C. at the Department of Transportation. She speaks incredibly highly of him, and as I would expect. So, Joe, that's not the worst theory in the world I've heard advanced. I do think there's some problems with it, though, because I think the Democratic Party, I just have a sense that there's a longing for Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer. I have that just sixth sense that I feel if all the cards were laid bare and open, that's who they'd really want to have. But I almost think they're better off putting someone in who is going to lose less, and then they'll turn around and fight in 2028.
Well, we can also look. We can also look all the way to November. Something could happen, like when we had that horrible weekend with Trump in 2016, when they thought he was going to get off the ticket. Anything goes. If, God forbid, Biden dies in office, you will see probably Newsom Harris. She'll just stay as VP. They'll muscle her to stay as vice president. It's not your turn to put Gavin in there, and that's. Sorry, I've been saying that for Hartford Courant. I'm publishing the front page last summer, a year ago. That guy will be president one day. There's no stopping it. Not because I like him, but I just think he's so smooth and sleazy at the same time. But he has all the right. He checks all the boxes. But if they could get Kamala to stand down, but I think it would be based on the sympathy that the president dies, which means she would become president, and then. Does she automatically run as VP, or it's every scenario is so hairy for these people, and they've done it all. I'm sure they've done all the graphs and the homework that you can. But listen, Trump's going to be the president. There's nothing stopping him except for a call from heaven. That there's no way to stop him.
Well, I mean, let's talk about that because senior European officials. We're shocked how, and now this is coming out about how Biden reacted when he was on his last overseas trips, last couple trips. I mean, senior diplomats just shaking their heads saying, this guy is rapidly deteriorating. So we've talked, and I want to bring something up you talked about earlier in the show, Joe. The discipline that Donald Trump has had over the past week post-debate, 10 days now past the debate schedule. Boy, that's impressive. I mean, outside of that leaked video from out on the golf course where, things can be said, he has been remarkably disciplined. And I thought he was very disciplined on the debate night stage, too. I mean, I'm not going to get that out of my face. When Trump's looking at him, when Biden declared that we beat Medicare, Medicare's been defeated, or whatever the hell he said. I wrote down my notes, so that's going to be the line of the night. And then when Trump looked at him and said, you don't know what you just said. I don't know what you just said either.
Yeah, he said you did beat Medicare. You beat the hell out of it. You did kill Medicare. You did kill the show. You beat the hell out of it. It's like, oh my! So that's what they can't get over. They can't get over the ridicule, and that can go the wrong way if you ridicule too much a senile person. And so, but he did it. He was a good measure. He did a good measure.
Well, and here's the thing that's really shocking Democrats right now. Let's instead of banging on elder abuse, which is we're not trying to, folks. It's just that's what the Democratic Party is doing because it's painfully
Yeah.
obvious this man's not running our country. I'm not sure who is, but he's clearly not. So let's talk about Trump for a minute. And here's another thing I think the Democrats are missing. Trump is on most opinion polls right now, Joe. He's knocking north of 49%. I mean, I was listening to this on the way coming into a studio. There was someone who was talking about it. In the Real Clear Politics average, Donald Trump is 12 points higher than he was at this time back in 2020. 12 points difference. So, Joe, you're talking, if those numbers don't reverse themselves, And really, I mean, look, Trump has to continue running, but he's not 46, 47% Donald Trump anymore. He's up to 49. And here's the other thing nobody's talking about, Joe. And I can just see it. Okay. I don't see Kennedy dropping out of this race. I know Jill Stein's not dropping out. Cornel West is not going to drop out. So let's say Trump gets his 49. Well, West is going to get 1 to 2. Stein's going to get 1 to 2. Now, Kennedy's bound to get at least 3 or 4 or 5 points. Well, by definition, then, that makes it a 49. And the most Joe Biden could garnish would be 42, 43%, which would be above his approval rating. I mean, his approval rating sitting here right now at 37%, according to 538, the Democratic, the guru of gurus. So, Joe, I mean,
this is going to sound crazy what I'm going to say next, because I was at the farmer's market the other day. I don't shop all the time. My kids do here and there for food, whatever. And I went to buy snap peas, and they're like $5 a pound. I'm like, what? I started looking at the price of vegetables, and it's the season for summer. It wasn't the place I was at because they're the best deal around. Everywhere you go, I'm like, well, I'm not going to buy those. I want to buy 2 pounds of those and 4 pounds of peppers. And wait a minute, that's like $50. I could just go out, to dinner tonight and do intermittent fast, but it's killing everybody. If you got kids, the food prices, never mind the energy and everything else. And so people are praying if it gets in, that that's really a pocketbook issue. And that's what Trump has always been known for. Wealthy, rich, fighting for the little guy. And that's ringing true. And we're not talking about that, but all the BS of Biden and that whole wokeism and everything that they've been trying to shovel with electric cars, all of it translates to this is costing us more. I don't know if the consumers are all equating it that way, but they're inclined to go unconscious, like an unconscious commitment with the guy they think is going to help them pay the bills. And really, I think that's where we are.
Speaking of paying the bills, we're going to take a quick 90-second break, and then we're going to close it out here. Be back with you in 90 seconds.
The world is about to shift. Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most private assets, silver and gold.
Call Kirk Elliott, PhD at 877-547-5743. That's 877-KIRK-PhD.
Looking to give your wardrobe an upgrade? Well, look no further. Here at God Country & Kin, we've got you covered from head to toe, from shoulder to shoulder, and everything in between. Introducing our brand new Patriotic Collection, designed to display your patriotic spirit with a stylish look that's sure to turn heads. And the best part is, you don't have to break the bank to be your best you. Why wait? Visit us online or in-store today and elevate your style with God Country & Kin. God Country & Kin, where patriotism meets style. Shop now. Visit the Patriot TV store and look for the God Country Kin banner to find the perfect outfit, shirt, accessory, or maybe a great hat.
You can totally see yourself rocking this hat. I know you can. And check out all the great stuff we've got to show your patriotism at patriot.tv.store. Click that link above that says store and join me there at the Patriot TV store.
And we're back with Joe Visconti. Hey, Joe, before I get back on this, I want to point out a couple things for our viewers and listeners. If you want to be part of Patriot.tv, click on the icon, Patriot Defenders. It's a fabulous program. All kind of things from General Mike Flynn and other hosts that you may not see on a regular basis. Great opportunity. You can get a 2-year membership with it, $159, and you get a DVD from General Flynn of the movie. We've got, for people that want to sign up for a year, it's $99, and boy, you get so much great content. And then if you just want it month to month, you can do that for $9.99 too. But save yourself some money on it. 2-year, 1-year subscription to Patriot.tv. Lots of people have been signing up, and really it's been great to receive the support of many of our viewers and listeners. All right, Joe, we got a few minutes left here. We've really bounced around the ideas about, as Americans, what's best for the country. The Democratic Party doesn't seem to be listening to that. Okay. So now it's going to be coming down to crunch time. I think the following is going to happen in the coming week. I don't think Jill Biden, Hunter, the people close to the Bidens, they're not going to do anything to get this man out of the race. And as his, whether it's dementia, whether it's mental acuity, or just some people age rapidly when they hit in their 80s. Others don't. So we've seen 100-year-olds sharp as a tack, 90-year-olds sharp as a tack. Had dinner with one the other night. But Biden doesn't appear to be in that camp. Joe, I think it's going to take some party leaders like Chuck Schumer, Pelosi, Jim Clyburn, et al. Somebody's going to have to step up when they really cut through these numbers here, because if donors are slowing down the donations, I'm talking about the donor class. We didn't even mention, but now there have been 4 major newspapers, New York Times, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, one of the Boston papers, and there was one of the Chicago papers. That's 4 major markets, all 4 calling for Joe Biden to step aside. But I really think it's going to take Democratic leadership when they see that Biden at the top of the ticket is starting to pull down senatorial candidates, House candidates. Joe, that's my opinion when I think the floodgates may open.
Yeah, you're right. Between now and the convention in August, a lot is going to happen. Again, if nature takes over, if Biden gets emotional, and he starts to cry, if he has a breakdown or a moment of just uncontrollable, we know Kamala has uncontrollable laughter, but it is uncontrollable tears or breakdown and more feeble. It's going to make it very hard for the, and don't forget the public voted in the primaries for this. So, but I would never second guess the Democrats. They're ready right till election day to switch around the ballot. Those people are a machine, and they've got the money, and they've got the unions working on their campaigns, so they can flip this on a dime. But the pressure from the New York Times stopped the press. I mean, that was it. And so, if I had to put money, I say he either drops or he drops because an event occurs. But he probably would be better off staying as president and just riding this out and getting out of the race. I think that would take a lot of pressure to perform, and he could probably live longer. Just think about that. If they care about their father and their husband,
Right.
let the guy live long. This is too much stress having to perform. And when you're senile, the confusion, the anxiety, it's too much. And they've been probably doping him up illegal stuff and preparing him. Debate preps too much. Can't take it. And so something's going to happen. I don't even want to predict it because it may have to do with him passing on. But they will. America's going to be okay. Trump's going to be president. I always know when I'm certain something's going to happen. When I'm ambivalent, like 2020, I'm like worried because Brad Pascal was running the campaign. Everyone was throwing money around. We were doing both parades. We're not allowed to work the campaign. I'm like, this is crazy. And then the drop boxes, it was all said, uh-oh. Right now, I just feel the world, God, the American soul of America is pushing us forward. And the patriots in this country they're everywhere, and they're just regular Joes. And I just think we're in a good spot. I've never been more positive in all this craziness we're seeing.
And you know what drives me crazy, Joe, is when I see all these commentators coming on TV, not necessarily commentators, but politicians from the Democratic side of the ledger. You would think Donald Trump was an axe murderer the way they talk about this man. And to me, it's insulting to the 49% of Americans that now want Donald Trump as their president, and for them just to continually bash the man for what's happening, bash the Supreme Court. And, if you can't attack Trump, now you want to attack the Supreme Court for upholding the immunity piece, which will likely end up, getting that sentence thrown out, whatever he was going to be sentenced when it comes into September now. So, I mean, it's sort of really galling. And I almost feel when I hear this, remember how Hillary Clinton talked down to voters, and the infamous, what was her infamous 47% that she came out with, and talked about a basket of deplorables, and I mean, just I hear these horrific comments about Trump, and I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, 49% of Americans don't feel the way you just referenced him, and I think there's going to be some backlash from it. Joe, I think I've said this, and you and I have talked about it extensively. There's a lot of people in this country that do not like Donald Trump for whatever reason. We could pick numerous examples. But you know what? There's a whole lot less people that didn't like his policies. And when you're going down, you're saying, okay, well, how is it possible? This is where these talking heads and these Democrats, these liberal commentators, they can't wrap their arms around it. Why is it? What's this affinity for Trump? Let's leave Joe Biden out of the equation. We know how bad he is and cognitive. We don't keep, pounding that, table. Under Donald Trump, we had low inflation. That's a fact. Not as Janet Yellen said, no, well, and Biden claimed, oh, I inherited 9%. No, you did not. You inherited 1.5% inflation.
Yeah.
Americans didn't sign up for an open border. When Joe Biden became president, we knew it would be lax border, but not a completely open border. Reason number 3, people wanted a growing economy. Now, jobs report came out on Friday, Joe. It was a couple 100,000 jobs, but the May numbers were reduced by over 50,000. So, folks, when you hear these are surveys and estimates. When you hear, well, we created 212,000 jobs and the unemployment rates ticked up 0.1% to 4.1, that doesn't tell you the story behind the numbers, because in May the numbers were adjusted down by over 50,000 jobs that they just miraculously disappeared. So people don't want to have an economy where you mentioned food prices, where they're already tapped out on their credit cards. 1.1 trillion. They want some stability, which we clearly don't have with Joe Biden. Another thing I'm going to point out, Joe, when Trump left office, we didn't have these wars raging all around the world. Yeah. Trump said, those wouldn't have happened if he had been president. Counterfactual, we're never going to know. But again, peace and prosperity, low inflation, a growing economy, a secure border, those are things people care about. And then what do the Democrats feed us? Well, these Republicans, they're all anti-abortionists, and we're the pro-abortion part. But that issue ranks about number 8 on a list of 10 issues. Well, we need to really support men becoming women and competing in college athletics. Come on already. Joe, so when you're talking about gender identity politics, women's right to choose, as they like to say, abortion, where Trump's already come out and said he believes it's a state's issue, and it's been litigated. I think Trump's right about that. So I think there's more space there. Joe, you got a half a minute to close it out here. Give me your election prediction where we are right now.
Well, I'll say it, screaming from the rooftops. Trump will be president, and I think he's going to have the wind at his back with the Chevron deference, which is just going to be beginning. It's going to take 25 years to correct our American government from what was been done to it since 1984 and earlier. And so that means every aspect of our life is going to be transformed into something that's more constitutional, something that's more liberty driven, more Patriot TV, paternal. The masculine, I'm starting to see it based on paternal, the fathers and the families. Being part of the collective rather than this feminism and the things that have been done to this country. And so the family is going to survive. And people that don't want this are ideological, and they bought it like they bought, some kind of a brand they thought they were going to like Lululemon or something. No, this isn't loungewear here. These are decisions based on moral principles that have gone back thousands of years of Judeo-Christian beliefs. And really, that's what's under attack. God has been under attack, and God will not be mocked. He's not going to be mocked. This country's coming back. It's going to be, like Trump says, greater than ever. And it's really not people doing it. It's just at the time, I just believe God is involved.
Speaking of time, Joe, we are out of time now, but I want to thank you for being my guest. Folks, Joe's going to have his own show on Patriot TV coming soon. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Schaftlein Report will be back on Sunday. We'll see you then.